Welcome back, everybody, to the Random Onion. And on today's episode, we are going to be getting back into the timeline video for the Kadenverse. And this version of the video will cover roughly the World Wars, and that'll be it. So we're going to be covering from 1900 to 1945. So we're going to be covering basically the two world wars, the depressions. We're going to start with 1914, which, in our regular timeline, a lot of stuff is very, very similar. In Earth Prime's timeline of the Kadenverse, in 1914, World War I begins. There's not really much supernatural meaning behind why World War I began. People are just people, they're horrible. However, in 1916, the man responsible for Rasputin's death, after he manipulated the Tsar and the Tsar's wife of Russia and whatever, is actually Cain. He's the one who orchestrated the assassination on this Earth, and that's because his genitalia were running around other Earths, causing mass extinction level events. 1918, World War I ends. Heaven and Gehenna have seen it play out on other Earths as well. They're not completely shocked. This war, though, it is kind of treated as a proxy war between the American vampire and European vampire covens, but not really that often. There may be like 2 or 3 incidents involved in that they might not even be worth getting into, besides maybe a real short horror story later on down the line. Next, we're going to get into the Great Depression. More importantly, what some familiar names were doing during said Great Depression. In 1921, we have Kane's son, Jonathan Crawley. You guys have seen him in the Nemesis stories. He opens a speakeasy in Miami. And, as you guys know, Prohibition during the Great Depression, that stuff was real big. In 1923, Morgana Le Fay, at this point she's been captured by the Keepers. Well, that ends with her escaping Keeper custody. In 1924, Morgana Le Fay ends up murdering Jonathan Crawley's daughter in cold blood. Jonathan Crawley actually had a fairly peaceful life up until 1924. He wasn't the accumulator of artifacts quite yet. 1927, Crawley's speakeasy is closed down by the police, and that is when he goes into another business, which is becoming an accumulator of ancient artifacts. Then, we skip a few years later. Morgana Le Fay, in 1934, assists a certain German political party in its rise to power. We follow that with, in 1939, Morgana Le Fay starts conducting experiments with the revenant pathogen on unwilling subjects. You guys know who those subjects are. I'm not going to read too much into it. This is actually the forerunner to the Lazarus pathogen. In 1939, Allied intelligence finds out about Germany's supernatural weapons program. In turn, mainly Britain and France, create Pendragon with the help of one of the 4 horsemen, that one being Quintus. In 1939, World War II officially begins when Germany invades Poland. In 1940, Pendragon recruits Gunther, who goes by a different name at that point in time, but I'll get into that some other time, Wyatt Walker, some lightbenders, and a British intelligence agent known as Agent Loxley, as well as another familiar face, Megan. In 1941, and the day that will live in infamy happens as Japan launches a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor. Then from 1941 through 1943, various villages in Europe are used as a testing ground for the Germans' new revenant pathogen. In 1944, D-Day happens. Pendragon uses this as an opportunity to get boots on the ground to chase down the rumors of this weapon that is on German soil. In 1944, Pendragon encounters a village that is loaded to the brim with revenants. I've actually written this story, I just haven't sent it to anyone yet. If you guys want to see it, let me know. Again, in 1944, Germany, the Germans, discover Marcus Octavius frozen in time in the mountains of Poland. Also in 1944, Pendragon tracks LaFay in Germany's supernatural weapons program to a ship in the Mediterranean. The fight that ensues ends with Megan sinking the ship and LaFay on board. It is on this ship that Pendragon finds out that the Germans have Marcus Octavius in custody. In early 1945, Pendragon tracks down Marcus at a German base in Antarctica. The rest of the war goes without further supernatural incident, besides unleashing the sun. I know I said we were just doing World War II, but I lied. We're going to do a little bit after World War II as well. Starting with 1946, Billy Grayson and the OSS open up the Supernatural Operations Division, or SNOD, after reading several classified Pendragon reports. This also happens because Pendragon had been disbanded and a lot of their stuff was sent over to the OSS and MI6. In 1949, SNOD gets their first test when a vampire known as Jericho breaks a war criminal called Steiner from prison. In 1950, Steiner and Jericho continue LaFay's old Revenant program. SNOD actually tracks them down with help from an old Pendragon associate called Megan. Jericho is in turn betrayed by Steiner. You guys know Jericho from some of the stories, and he does not like Gehenna for a certain reason. This is actually a big part of it. And Jericho is also almost killed during this. Instead of dying, he makes a deal with a demon called Talk, who possesses him and kills several SNOD members before escaping. In 1950, Steiner creates Bishop Pharmaceuticals, which is a precursor to a very familiar pharmaceutical company. He also gets help with this company from a Julian Marks, who also goes by Victor because it sounds cool. Also in 1950, Gene Grayson, father of Rick Grayson, who is in turn the father of Trent Grayson, is born. In 1950, Marcus Octavius is living peacefully in Alaska. In 1950, SNOD opens up Sunshine Prison after catching a rogue god attempting to break into a mining shaft in the Cheyenne Mountains. That is actually where we're going to finish off this timeline video. The next timeline video we do is going to cover from 1950 to 2030, which is when Trent Grayson's story actually starts. So, without further ado, please remember to like, subscribe, and we will see you guys next time.
Even if we lose our lives, the world won't remember our sacrifice, but we'll make it a not think twice. And when they ask for our souls, when they promise us respite, we'll look those demons in the eyes and scream with all our might. They ask us where our loyalty to you lies, we tell them for the night. Oh, we tell the night. So fight like there's no tomorrow. I'll lead, give you someone to follow. It doesn't matter if our time is borrowed. Let's give these demons some steel to swallow. Let's make them suffer, let's kill them all, no. Even if we lose our lives, the world won't remember our sacrifice, but we'll make it and not think twice. And when they ask for our souls, when they promise us respite, we'll look those demons in the eyes and scream with all our might. They ask us where our